everybody. This is Kurt Molly here with my good friend Scott Oldford. Hey, if you've been online for a little while, you may have seen Scott around a little bit. He uses something that he calls Omnipresence and a couple of other little tricks. Well, basically, a couple of years ago, I met Scott through, the internets. I saw him walking around on the internets, and then he walked into this place called Baby Bathwater. Now, I've talked about this a lot. We've had a lot of guests from Baby Bathwater, really some of the smartest people that I've ever met. Scott and I had a unique experience where basically, I think we kind of all fit in. Baby Bathwater is a bunch of really interesting people. A lot of us are extroverts and introverts where we all want to hang out in a crowd, but all be by ourselves at the same time, which is kind of unique. So Scott and I had a great experience where we basically sat down for 90 minutes in your car in the parking lot, had a great discussion. I'll never, ever forget it. Woke up the next morning, Scott's like, man, hey, changed my entire company. Called my CEO, 5 o'clock in the morning, made some big changes. And you've made lots of changes throughout the year. It's one of the things that I want to talk about. It's really a lot of pivoting and shifting right now. We were just geeking out for about 20 minutes before the call because we were talking about how lead cost is really low. This whole Omnipresence is just working amazing. And then you have an offer right now we'll talk about that's really helping people, Recessionproof. And this is going to be a lot of fun. We're probably going to geek out a bunch. So first of all, thank you very much for being here, Scott. This is going to be great.
Always good hanging out with you, man. I remember, I had that, kind of crazy night, and I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to blow my business up and I'm going to, let my whole team go and I'm going to do everything. And then a month later, I met my now wife I went back and I did all those things in 4 days, started traveling the world 4 days later. And then I didn't get too far before the universe was like, all right, hold on. We know you're open to it. You don't have to go travel the world for 20 years. So anyways, but it was fun, man. And you're one of the 5 or 6 people that I had a conversation with that evening that really impacted my life in a very positive way. So I very much appreciate that.
Absolutely. This has been fun. So basically there's 3 different types of people who watch this. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-interview. So some people are just going to be binge watching this. Some people want to have a more well-rounded marketing strategy. Like I said, the only way to get access to these recordings is if they join the belt. And then the third thing is experts who just want to dive in deeper, which you've been working with a lot. But the economy is a little crazy right now. So let's back up to your story. You actually started in entrepreneurship at a pretty young age. Do you mind talking about that for a minute?
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 8. Technically 7. When I was 8, made my first 20,000. By the time I was 16, I had a $1 million business. Fast forward and, quite a few businesses in between. By the time I was 21, $1 million in debt. So I've been through actually I had one of my most successful businesses, 2007, 2009, when the economy did crash. I had a marketing agency back then. That was a fun, interesting time back then, and fun for me, not fun for a lot of people. And then
were you making money in 2007, 2008 then when you made that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%. I was making more money than I ever made during that time. It was like everybody and their dog coming to me. And then, which is why, if we're in this time and you're in the right business, it's going to be like, wait a minute, I literally I have no ability to even take care of all what is in front of me.
Yeah.
I feel like that right now. And I know, Kurt, you feel that way too. And so then in 2015, I had no idea, I had no idea about this online space, this, coaching and mentoring and courses and all. Like I didn't know who Frank Kern was until 2016. And so, or maybe even 2017. And so in 2015, I launched my first course, which I felt like an imposter. I was like, I shouldn't be teaching. I did it for 10 years. It is even more of this online marketing stuff. And then that, between 2015 and this year, generated somewhere around $30 million of my own money and have helped, over $500 million in revenue. So the top people that are working at seven figures plus that are in this space, online space, pretty high percentage of them have been mentored or coached by me in some level. I'm not like the hardcore internet marketer though. Like I'm not the guy to go into the data and be like, this. I'm more of like, how do I, from a psychology perspective, how do we get someone from here to there? And then from a business perspective, I've been able to scale over 100 businesses past 7 figures. So that's I don't know, that's the claim to what people think I'm good at. I think I'm good at scuba diving, but that's what everyone wants.
think I'm good at scuba diving, but other people like this stuff. So.
Yeah, other people like this other stuff. If people like the scuba diving, I'd talk about that more. But
I do have to admit, whenever I'm on a dive boat with all the dive instructors, like out in the Caribbean or wherever I travel, and I'm like, "You guys do this full time?" Yeah, man. And I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, I gotta, I have that same feeling. I was in St. Lucia, 10 or 12 years ago. And my very first 7-day dive expedition down there. And I was like, oh my God, these guys have a life and they don't.
That's what you do all the time. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
So one of the things is kind of like talking like a kid in a candy store, like the economy now. And again, I want to be really sensitive to this because it depends on who's watching this. But there's a lot of great opportunity now. But the opportunity from right now comes from a lot of adversity in the past. So that's what I want to talk about for just a couple of other minutes as well, too. You talked about $1 million in debt. You transitioned from that. So what was that transition? So you're $1 million in debt back then. What year was that? And then what did you do to move from that?
So that would have been 7 years ago. So I'm 28 now. So it's not that long, not super long ago. But so first off, I was actually in debt. So I had a very successful marketing agency, and I was doing all these other different projects. And so I overextended myself. I thought because I was never, a lot of the time, an entrepreneur that has succeeded twice in a row, they're the biggest entrepreneur that's going to fail the third time, right? Because you think you're invincible. The first time you think it's luck. The second time you think you're good.
Absolutely.
And so, so that and ego, but from the time I was 16 onwards, I was like this Canadian whiz kid, in the media, right? Won all these awards and all these different types of things. So I thought I was invincible. And so I had a business that I was investing a lot of money in, a lot of money. I invested, close to $1 million in almost 2 years of my life to it. And without going into what it was, but it was essentially putting advertising on cars. Okay, so Joe down the street that has a Toyota Corolla, I'd give him $250.
Oh yeah,
and we had a whole online software, and I had 17 team members, and then one day I realized it wasn't going to work, and then after that I had 17 team members and I didn't fire them, and I tried to bring them over to my agency that was doing well.
Yeah.
Over the next year, I lost all the money I did have, went into debt, and when I was in the red, $100,000 a month. So that was probably one of the worst mistakes.
So actually, let's talk about that, because this is what we're kind of moving towards now, and this is the reason behind the question is requires fast decisions. When I got sued in 2015 from Facebook, I'm like, no, everything's going to be fine, and I kept my $60,000 a month in payroll for 2 months, and I'm like, it'll be fine. After $120,000, I'm like, what am I doing? And one of my good friends, a mutual friend, Mike Dillard, called me literally 5 days after I got sued. And he's like, make tough decisions. And I'm like, I got this. I'm going to roll it in. I got this. No, I didn't make fast decisions, and it was a horrible thing. Well, you've actually made a lot of, people would say, quick decisions on a lot of different businesses over the last couple of years, but you really make these decisions with emotion. And actually, that's really just a good question is, when you decide to pivot from a business, you've done this a couple of times over the last 18 months, is it a gut feeling? Is it, hey, I just don't believe in the past? I
think that, so I believe we have a lot of different consciousnesses inside of us. Okay. So we have primal consciousness, reactive consciousness. We have willful consciousness, intellectual consciousness, and intuitive consciousness. Okay. And so they're all working, and you can kind of tap into each of them based on where most people don't get past reactive, but we won't worry about that today. So 90% of the world don't get past reactive. If you're an entrepreneur and you stay in reactive, you're not going to do very well. And so, in 2015 or 2014, I had an agency in St. John's, Newfoundland. I blew that up, went to Toronto, Canada. Okay. In 2015, between 2017, I had another business. 2017, I blew that up. 2017 to 2019, I basically got a 2-year cycle. You know what I mean? I got a 2-year cycle, right? Where it's because you got to realize that true entrepreneurs, unlike CEOs, unlike operators, true CEOs, their businesses are an expression of who they are. And as soon as you evolve past the business, you no longer associate with the business and you don't care about it anymore. Because everything is energy, and because everything we put into a business is energy, once it no longer serves us, unless we've set it up that it can, live without us, which is rare, right? Or you've been able to set it up where you could sell it. You're unattached to it, right? Because true entrepreneurs also don't care that much about money, We're like, we can just make more. And so I think that, I've gotten better and better. And one of the books I'm working on is how to pivot, how to sell a business. I've sold a business, pivoted, and blown them up, combined, a dozen and a half times, almost 2 dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
And, is it a gut thing? I think it's an energetic, for me, it's kind of like, there's an energetic part of it. There's there's an intuitive pull. And then there's like also the intellectual of like, okay, I need to change right now. So like, I'll give an example, very quick pivot in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Absolutely.
Okay. So about a month ago, I started, because I mentor a lot of people that are at multiple 7 figures. I start to see things before the market sees things.
See the trends. Absolutely.
And I started seeing the trend in January, right? Because people think that the virus collapsed the economy. The virus made the economy collapse more quickly, but this was going to happen. I was getting ready for the economy to collapse for the last 2 years. You know what I mean? I've been saving money the world's going to end for like 2 years. And so from that perspective, I started to see, hold on, I got a ding in the background and I'm going to end it. There we go. And, one of the biggest things I saw was people were starting to default on their payments, not my clients, but the clients of my clients. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then I was like, I digged into it. I got on phone calls with my clients and I got on phone calls with their clients. And very quickly I was like, we've got a problem. And then I started to see this and then, I started to see this, it catched up with it within 2 months. And so, and so for me, I work a lot one-on-one. And if my clients aren't going to be growing or they're not going to, have the ability to grow, not that I'm in a situation where, I need to work hard, but I was looking at this, I'm like, you know what? I've done this for a long time. I know how to get through a recession. I know how to optimize and do this. And so I was like, I was thinking after like a good 2 solid weeks, okay, I need to do something. I don't know what it is. I need to do something. And then I was talking to someone that I used to mentor that we were doing another business. We were developing a business AI, artificial intelligence system that got postponed because the world doesn't need that right now. And so, we created this Recessionproof program and yes, my current existing business is over there. And if you look back, I'm reading a really good book right now. Actually, you'd love this book if you haven't read it. It's the history of capitalism in America. And it's a history starting from the 1700s of capitalism. And in every single person that really made it, they found something. There was a right time, right place, right skill, right people, made money, and then it became illegal. And it was just like from the 1700s, every single person that made money, whether you call a lot of the things that happened ethical or unethical or morally corrupt or not, people made money, and people made even more money when we're in times like this right now. And so I saw this coming and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to help, I'm going to do an offer and I'm going to do a side of the business that people need right now, because people are not caring about freedom and trying to travel the world. They're trying to have income security at this exact moment.
So just real quick, for anybody who's watching this right now for what Scott's talking about, and I want to dive into that just a little bit more here, but just see a link on your screen. It'll be thebelt.live/Scott. So thebelt.live/Scott. You'll see that link come up a couple of different times. So there's 4 or 5 different questions I want to ask you at once. So you pivoted your business a couple of times. A lot of this comes from, we've talked about just kind of your decision-making process, kind of the energetic levels with it. So that makes sense. Now you start to see the writing on the wall, right? You're working with some higher level clients. That makes a lot of sense. And what you decided to do is to really, you talk about recession-proof your business, and people will see from the link. I mean, it's really just another perception of how you're pivoting your business. And we were geeking out right before the call. You're like, oh my goodness, I have not seen leads this cheap. You are doubling down. You are really running at this. When most people are stopping marketing, they're scared. I don't understand either, because I'm getting great leads. But will you talk about what you wrote, what that program was, where that link's going to take people, and why it is just catching on fire right now?
Well, we've had 12,000 people download this document in a week. Actually, I think it might be less than a week right now. And so I started writing this document, this recession-proof document, which is the link below, and it's about 45 pages. And so I wrote this I started writing this for my private clients because my private clients, I started, they're all starting to freak out, right?
Yeah.
And my job most of the time is to be their therapist as much as I am their mentor.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy that. I really do. I love helping people that are like me. You know what I mean? Like most of the people I mentor is it's like a past version of me. And so I was writing this because everyone's like, how do I do marketing? How do I do this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to write a document and we'll kind of go from there. And then I was like, oh, you know what? Like, everybody needs this document. And so I created this. And then at first I didn't have anything to even sell along with it. I was like, well, I'm just going to put a document out there. And then, my buddy Austin, as I said before, called me up and he's like, hey, I'm going to do something. I was like, dude, I got something that we could put at the front of this. And I mean, I would love to teach people how to do their marketing and their sales and their mindset for this time. And so we put together the Future-Proof program. That's, this amazing $2,000 offer. That's ridiculous, the amount of support that we're putting inside of it. But essentially, I went and I was like, you know what, I keep in mind, a month ago, my ad cost was about $15, to get a new lead.
Yeah. We were just talking about that. Absolutely.
And I was also in a time, like the only things I had to sell were a $5,000 program, $25,000 and $250,000. That's it. And because I don't have any team. A year ago, I had 44 team members. Now it's like me, my creative guy, and my assistant. Okay. And so, I was like, okay, let's just try this on a Facebook ad. So I tried on a Facebook ad. My lead cost starts out at 60 cents. and I'm like, that happens sometimes. Every once in a while that happens with my warm audience.
On the welcome page, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And well, at first I was like, the tracking must be like,
right.
I must not know how to use Facebook anymore. And I mean, I've spent millions of dollars of my own money on Facebook ads, but I'm like, something must be messed up. So I don't know. We're at spending like $3,000. I think by the end of the day, $4,000 a day. And so I went to I was talking to my wife on, what's this, Friday? So I was talking to my wife on Wednesday, and I was like, hey, like, this is a lead cost. I want to put all of our money into this right now. and she, she gets it. She's an entrepreneur as well. And so I was like, I want to put at least, $60K a month. If I can keep going, if I can make it. Yeah. Right now, I'm still at the early point where like, we don't know what the ROI is going to be, but at $1 to $2, I don't even give a shit. This is the time. If I'm like, I've been wanting to build my audience, 250,000 people. I mean, the way I look at it is like, if I can get 250,000 people to download that document, I will add 250,000, because I've literally, from just having that document out there, I had the head of Singularity University write an article and quote me about what was in there. Keep in mind, Singularity University is down the road for me, and I literally have been wanting to go down there because I'm so interested about the future and futurism, and now they're quoting me in a fucking article. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's cool. And those are the opportunities right now. I don't know if right now is the opportunity to like make a bunch of money on the leads right this moment. I don't know if that's the truth for me, but if I'm looking at an investment, and I think this is one most people screw up in times like this, they look at the next 90 days. If you can afford to look at the next 5 years, this is the time where you make a lot of money. And I also appreciate, if you're listening to this, you might have less than $30. Hopefully you have more than $30, but I found myself at a time having less than $2. But hopefully you might only have 30 days of cash in the bank, and that might not be something that you can literally do. But one thing I have found is during this time, if you produce more content, you get on the phone with more people, you try to help more people. In 2011, I sold my agency for $1 to avoid bankruptcy. I went and I worked for someone for a year. Most terrible experience of my entire life. In 2013, I was like, I had enough of this. I had $14,000 a month in debt payments. Okay. So just let that sink in. $14,000 in debt payments that I had to pay every single month. I went out, got 60 meetings, 60 meetings. And I closed $250,000 in sales in less than 30 days. No sales page, no website, no business card, not even a company name. I just figured out what someone needed and then presented that back to them and helped them.
So I want to go back on this because there's a couple of really great things that you said in here. So you and I have actually had this conversation privately, where a lot of people try to find the perfect ad at the perfect time, at the perfect place. And they're like, ooh, I got this one offer And if I put in $1 and I make 6, no, I mean, I make 4. I mean, you know what? I shut it down after 2 weeks. And a lot of times we've talked about very openly, I've done it. I know you've done it. You're like, well, I just want to build a relationship. I just want people to see me all over. I don't really care about leads. Actually, you know what? I don't really care about the offer cost. I want to add value. I'll just go ahead and crank up the dial. And yeah, and I know this sounds a little weird. I'm just going to say this very openly because we've done this for a long time, but I know that you've done this and done this as well, which is you crank up to 2 or 3 grand a day. You might not be making 2 or 3 grand a day, but that omnipresence, the people really start seeing you. And whenever you decide to make an offer like what you just did, all of a sudden people are like, oh my goodness, I've been waiting for some kind of offer. Scott has great content. And you want to talk about that for a minute? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, I think you got to look at this as like, you got to look at marketing and advertising as an investment versus a longer term investment. So, you know, I put it this way. Okay. When I got in 2015, I had an email list of 1,200 people. I've never spent $1 on my own Facebook ads ever in my entire life. No advertising, nothing. Okay. And so I looked at it this way. So I spent, I think somewhere around 2.5 on Facebook, maybe, you know, other things, maybe $500,000. Okay. So in the last 4 years, let's call it $3 million on my personal brand. Okay. And from that, I've made 30 million. Okay. So, but there has never been a day in my entire life where I put $2,000 in ads and I got $2,000 in sales from that day ever in my entire existence.
100%. Yes, I agree.
That's never happened. Okay. That's never happened. And I've never even tried. Right. And so the way I look at it, this is lots of people invest their money in the stock market. Right. And so that is so first off, it comes from a belief of myself. Okay. A belief, which is if I know more people, like my content's so good, my knowledge is so good, my expertise is so good, and I get success. If I know more people, I'm going to make more money because I know I help people. And when I help people, I make more money because that's what entrepreneurs do. We solve problems, get paid for it. That's it. Yeah. People try to do all that. Like right now, you're going to be defined if you're an entrepreneur or you're just a poser, right? And like right now is the time where when you have entrepreneur on your Instagram profile, it's like, all right, you go and solve problems, you get paid for it. And during times like this, you get paid even more for it.
Yeah.
And so right now, and I'm seeing this time, and like, I'll be very honest, I haven't spent that much money in the last year on Facebook ads or any type of advertising, very small amount of money. I've actually been generating almost all my money and all of my profit. I've had the most profitable last year of my entire life. Okay. Because I had an email list and all I did was retargeting. So I had my group of, you know, a couple 100,000 people that I would retarget offers to, bring people in, and they already know who I am, all that type of stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I have the opportunity to double my audience right now. Oh yeah, let's do this right now. Because I know I have books. I know I have different things. I know I have like, what doesn't matter. What somebody actually knows that I can help them, it's game over. I'm going to make money from them somehow because I'm going to be able to find a way to help them. And that's the way I look. So if you put money into the stock market, instead of putting $2.53 million in the stock market, I put it into my own personal brand. And unless I was betting money on Bitcoin, I think that's the only, I think that's the only stock not even stock, that's the only way I would have been able to make the same amount of money that I did than putting the money into my own personal brand.
Yeah. So a couple of quick questions as we round this out, because this is really good. So like I said, there's 3 different types of people that are watching this. You know, beginners who are just binge watching a lot, intermediate to more well-rounded marketing. So let's talk about the beginners for a second. For everything that you know, that you've seen, first of all, I'll put the link up on the screen again, which is the belt.live/Scott. Make sure you check out the recession-proof thing that Scott's been working on. It's absolutely amazing. What words of advice would you have for someone new right now as they're binge watching? There's lots of opportunity. Any insightful advice that you'd give somebody?
I say this in the guide. I say this online space is going to 5 to 30, and I think it's more closer to 30 X in its size in less than 24 months. Okay, so me and Kurt, we're going to do well. Okay, and so we're already doing pretty well, but we're going to do real well. And I have a mentor of mine that, you know, probably worth somewhere about $500 million. And, about a year ago when I sold my last business and I shut the other part of it down, I was like, hey man, what should I do next? And he's like, just do what you're doing. Just keep way more money. Because he's like, you're in one of the 3, you're at the top of your space in one of the 3 industries that are going to continue to grow exponentially over the next 5 years. And I was like, and this guy doesn't even understand, like he doesn't even understand this space when I first met him. Okay. And And so my best piece of advice is do things, do it really quickly and do it fast, and forget about perfectionism. Forget about knowing everything. I don't know everything. And like the best thing you got to realize is like, I've monetized my failures. Other people pay me literally $250,000 a year for failure avoidance because I've failed so much in my life. And eventually, the other beautiful thing about entrepreneurship, you just keep on doing it. You're going to find success at some point because there's only so many times you can fail. But it does, you really got to have like the biggest thing that's important. Who is dinging me now? The biggest thing that's important. And I think I learned this from my grandfather, and I think you can learn this from other entrepreneurs, or you might, just have to develop it yourself, or maybe it came in your family. And none of my family was entrepreneurs, but my grandfather, most resilient person I've ever met, has had 5 heart attacks, told he was going to like die by the time he was 45. And he's 80 years old now, and most resilient guy I've ever seen. And so entrepreneurship is the resilience of being able to go through failure after failure after failure, because nothing's ever going to work the way that you think it is.
So I am curious, kind of second to last question is the intermediate level, right? Some people are holding back on their marketing. I don't understand that at all. I'm really doubling down with the whole belt strategy we talk about, really the whole omnipresence. It is get to know as many people as possible. There's so many people binge watching right now, and so many people not producing content. You want to give any insight for those advice for those people who they already know how to run ads. Now they just have to get out of their own way and their own head for them to start moving.
I tell you to stop listening to all outside sources that are not helpful. So stop listening to the fucking news.
Yeah.
Stop listening to your aunt or your uncle talk about all the doomsday stuff. Stop going down the rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and propaganda and all that kind of bullshit. Is there aliens? Maybe, but who fucking cares? That doesn't.
I don't have enough time to look into it. I am busy working.
Yeah, like who cares? You know what I mean? And so, my advice is, number one, turn off all signals that are not helpful. Keep us on because we're helpful, but turn off all other signals. Number two is right now you got to be a beacon of your own certainty. Okay. So you've got to like dig down wherever your insecurity is and your fear, and you're gonna be like, fuck that shit. Not today. I'm out, forget that. So that's number two. And number three, is it the best, and obviously, most entrepreneurs have less than a couple months of money in the bank. I mean, that's just the honest truth. Okay. So my advice to everybody, play the short game and the long game at the same time. Okay. So if you might need to go and create an offer or start doing, the reason I started doing one-on-one was in 2016. This is a fucking hilarious story. In 2016, I spent so much money on my launch that I had less than $6,000 in my bank account by the time that the actual doors came open. Yep. And I had to do one-on-ones and get the money just to pay my team, because I went so much into putting the money into the actual, I was like all in on this campaign. And I ended up doing $1.2 million. And the beautiful thing is that like right now you might have to work harder. Right now you might have to do offers that you've never done before, but try to, the number one investment that makes sense might not be team, might not be your operations, but I guarantee you put money into your personal brand, you're going to make that shit back 10, 20, 30x over the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, I think that kind of answers my last question, which is, so 2020 is a little crazy. I'm going to run this interview for the rest of 2020. Downtown Austin's boarded up. We don't know what we're going to do next. I know I'm working a ton, you're working a ton, but through Scott's lens, what are you focused on? What are you researching? What are you really paying attention to for the rest of the year?
I mean, so I think the stock market's going to go down. I've never really played the stock market that much ever, because I've always focused on my own stuff. I think the economy is people are going to realize that. So here's what I think is going to happen. And I know that we're going way over time, but I think this is it. So I think what's going to happen, we're recording this in March right now, end of March. So this just happened. The stimulus packages and the bailouts, and like they're printing $1 trillion a day, completely overinflating the US dollar, but let's not worry about that right now. So in 2 months, 3 months, this virus is going to no longer really be a focus point. Okay. Like I would expect by July. And then the markets are going to bounce back up. Everyone's going to be like, oh, you know what? It's all over. It's all over. And then you're going to see the real crash happen. And mark my words on this, because we're going for a crash before the virus, and we were going head on into it in 2021. If you look into this at all, the federal banks were just trying to like keep things going until the re-election. Okay. And then shit was going to hit the fan anyways. Okay. So you're going to see a entire second degree collapse of the market. You're going to see the biggest mortgage crisis that has ever been seen, far worse than 2008. Same thing with automobiles. All of these things are going to happen. If you're an entrepreneur right now and you have capital, biggest thing is don't deploy it. Don't be stupid and put it into things that are based on speculation of a market. Yeah. Because right now is the time to have cash, and if you keep on to it, like right now, that's why I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm like, I want it, and I'll be honest, I wanted $7 million in liquid cash going into what I knew was going to be the economy crash. Okay. And I didn't have that. And I was like, well, shit, I guess I'm going to make the rest. I'm going to make the rest up this year. Right. Because I know the real opportunities come a year or two after.
Yeah.
And the ability to really invest in companies that have super discounted, the ability to invest in mortgages and being able to, help people out. Number one, help people out, help people not get out of their homes, while also, obtaining massive levels of real estate. All of those things are going to happen in 2021, 2022. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you got cash in the bank, that's what I'm thinking about right now. Is let's just put more cash in the bank, and don't be trigger happy on too many investments at once, especially in this year. So that's my speculation. I'm also not an economist. I'm also not a financial advisor, and you probably shouldn't listen to anything I say, if we're all being honest. But hopefully I can come back 3 years from now and be like, oh, you know what? I knew at least a little bit of what happened. And so anyways, that's my predictions and my,
And I appreciate the interview. Like at the end of the day, what I hear you saying is just having a big omnipresence and really just having this big momentum. And then all of a sudden you didn't have to run ads for a while, and you just work some one-on-one. Now, because of the higher level people you're working with, it just really changes the thinking, the outlook, the next steps. So this is great. My brother,
I had the most profitable time in history between with no team members. No, I've only spent $100,000 up until 3 weeks ago. I only spent $100,000 in ads in the last year. Right? Very small amount of money. My profit margin's been 84% since, June of 2019.
Because of the momentum you set beforehand.
Correct. And now I get to build it all again. I get to build the next level of momentum. So I'm really, really excited for that.
It is great. I love you. I appreciate you. This is amazing. Again, the belt.live/Scott. You guys will see the link put up here a bunch. Make sure you click on it right away. But other than that, dude, thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. This is great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, brother.
Love you. Appreciate you. Take care. Bye.
You too.